Welcome, everybody. We have got some faces that I recognize from the conference. I'm just going to say, as people are coming in, if you'd like to join on and share your thoughts on the stream, just add yourself, just request to be a speaker. Happy to add you as a speaker to jump on here and share your experience at All Things Open. And if you are new and have not been at All Things Open, then we're going to tell you all about what this is and where it was and all the rest of that fun stuff, which sounds like a fantastic plan, doesn't it, audience? Yeah, absolutely. It's great. It's great. Oh, I love that. I'm going to have the echo when I do that too. All right. Who do we got requesting to speak? Amazing. I am not surprised that Richard is joining us to speak, one of our awesome regular speakers here on the channel. Maybe to start things off, for anybody who's never been here before, Andrew Norris, do you want to maybe share with everybody what All Things Open was and when it was and where it was and all those fun pieces?
Sure. Yeah. All things open. Not, uh, not sure how many years it's been going on for, but certainly for quite a while now. It was a conference hosted in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina, from last Sunday to Tuesday. Really, it was interesting from a format perspective that over the 3 days, there was, I think, around 10 to 12 different session themes that you could follow along in and jump in between them. A huge number of sponsors. The real magic of ATO though is definitely the community. You really feel the community feel, not just from the presenters, but all the social events around it, the social time meals around lunch hour and midday. You just sit down at a table and get to know new friends, basically. Yeah, from a tech conference, open, although it's in the name of the conference, I would say definitely AI was the common theme of this year's events. And yeah, there was lots of great companies that were presenting as well that they did demos of new approaches, new product iterations that they're doing as part of the conference structure as well. Yeah, so that was All Things Open. Our first time there, and both Andrew and I's first time there. I probably stuck more to the DevOps and developer tracks. Andrew jumped around a little bit to did some DevRel community tracks as well. Yeah, we're very impressed by the both the size, the structure, and the community that's there, and would definitely want to do it again next year.
Yeah. So I totally agree. That was a great synopsis for anybody that wasn't there. Who was there though? So throw a little reaction, a heart or a clap or a thumbs up or something like that. If you were at All Things Open last or earlier this week. So it wasn't even that long ago. This was on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And so, yeah, we got a lot of people. There we go. I recognize all these faces. I'm more just doing it for the people that weren't there. And if you weren't there and you're listening in right now, follow all these people. And so you can hear some of the experiences that they had at this event. Oh, and it looks like there's lots of people that were there. I'm going to invite people as we go. There is no structure for this. This is really just everybody jumping on and sharing their experience. So much of this, I think, like the conference game is like conferences are expensive and it's hard to understand whether or not it's a thing that's worth going to. And I think doing these retrospectives and sharing conference highlights isn't meant to like highlight people's FOMO. I think it's way more meant to hear some of the really cool things that happen at conferences that make them really worthwhile going and checking out. And the great thing is, I met a lot of the people that are on this space like for the first time in person. Like Nick and I live in the same country and we met each other for the first time in Raleigh. Roxy and I have met a couple times, a few like faces that I've only ever seen at conferences. And I think that's one of the great pieces about it. All right, so Richard, you are on. So I feel like you should take the first shot at what was the highlight experience. And either like we can do either like day by day or we could do like favorite experience overall. But I'm super curious, like what was a highlight for you of All Things Open this
Yeah,
year?
for sure. So from my perspective, it's interesting because I've been to two other conferences before All Things Open. So my very first one was that conference at Wisconsin, and the second one was FlutterCon and DroidCon, I believe. And then it was All Things Open, like the last couple days. And honestly, I wasn't sure what I was expecting going into it because I'm like, okay, so it's just another conference. Like I know some of these people, like the speakers and who's going. I know the friends that I want to catch up with. I know some of these sponsors. That was my kind of expectation going in. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting that many people as there were. I was pretty overwhelmed. I'm not sure if other people relate to that because honestly, there were times where I felt a little claustrophobic. I think one moment that kind of stands out to me is the socials for Monday because they did it in like the Pavilion Square and it was like on a smaller side. So when I walked in outside, like everyone just cluttered, and there was a huge line going outside of the dinner s-
Yeah.
assembly line.
Yeah, that social area. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was packed. It was shoulder to shoulder on that first day.
yeah. I'm like, I saw Jason and Roxy standing there. I'm like, oh my god, I see Jason. I want to say hi, but then I'm struggling to get to him because I'm like, I don't want to bump into anyone, and I'm like, I don't want to spill anyone's drink. I'm like, I am trying to stay as to myself as much as possible. I'm like, I don't want to trip over anyone. I'm like, hi Jason, how are you doing? I'm like, okay, now I want to get out of here because it's so crowded. It feels so claustrophobic. I'm just like, I want to like move around a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like that's a thing that maybe people don't talk about too much. There's different sizes of conferences. There's like your small meetups, which I think are still like meetups are never going anywhere. That's your like 20 to maybe 100 people. And then you get like the smaller conferences that are like 100 to 500. And then you get, I don't actually know if maybe like that conference is like around 1,000, but then generally you bump up into the like multiple thousands of people. So was that your biggest conference that you've been to, Richard?
So far, I would definitely say that was the largest one, sponsor wise and just people wise in general, for sure.
Amazing. By the way, if you're just jumping in, we're chatting all things open highlights. Feel free, request to speak. Would love to add you to the stage to share in the conversation, chat with us, highlights about the conference, lowlights even. Honestly, I feel like having that honest and open conversation about it, but also if you want to just share something that was just memorable for you about the conference, that's really what these experiences are about. All right. Oh, there we go. Grabbing Nick and bringing Nick on as a speaker. And there we go. The nice little delay. Nick, how is it going? Long time no see.
Yeah, yeah. Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, you are good.
Okay. I'm on Twitter desktop, so I never know if audio is gonna
Yep,
work.
same.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no,
Not the most reliable system in the world, that's for sure.
yeah. No, yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, it's wild. I felt like, I mean, I was in Raleigh for like weeks, but it was obviously only 3 days. But I don't know, that's usually a good sign. Even like when I go on a vacation, when you don't realize that the time that's gone by. Yeah, it's super awesome. Obviously, the talks and stuff were awesome, but for me, it was just connecting with a lot of folks, including yourself and Richard as well. Because obviously, yeah, we only met Andrew just on a Twitter space, I think, like a week before the thing. But yeah, it was just good to see. I actually met somebody that was contributing to open source project where I work, and this was in the early days. This was before I was working there. Like I was contributing to it, and he happens to live in Raleigh, and he was like, oh, maybe we'll meet up, and he dropped me a message, and so just got to see him, and it's the kind of things like I don't know. It's just wild that somebody one that I would have never met unless I'd done some open source project with them, but also then just meeting them just because of not just because, but by attending a conference. Like it's definitely about the people, and I don't mean shade on the talks are amazing too, but speaking for myself, it's definitely the people aspect, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So
No, I would definitely agree with you there. I think, especially when you start to do, and I hate to use this term for those of you that are like, have not been to conferences before, but when you start to do the conference circuit in air quotes, it's like you start to see people and they become like conference friends, right? Which I think is a cool little piece. And it also, I think there's this magic about conferences that if you are a nervous person or like a socially anxious person, you can almost always, if you've gone to one conference, there's somebody that you'll know that's at the next conference. And it just makes continuing on that process so much easier. Would you agree, Andrew?
Yeah, I think to Danny Thompson's talk on, I guess it was Tuesday morning, but how he got started in conferences and how opening up being the, as he described it, the extrovert for the introvert and the introvert for the extrovert at these conferences, and making it easy for people to come up and start a conversation. And that so much value, even at like small meetups, but especially at conferences when there's so many people, putting a little bit out about yourself of, hey, what's my tech stack, as a conversation point if you're at a developer conference, or what company are you at, or things like that, and beyond just your name, are helpful conversation starters, assuming like you do want to socialize with other people. Otherwise, I'm not sure why you'd be at those events. But yeah, I think he's created a whole career off of leveraging the relationships that he makes there, pays it forward to the rest of the community, and with the podcast that he does, and all that sort of follow on material that comes from these things. So yeah, I totally agree. It can be overwhelming as someone who's like ranges between being an introvert and extrovert. It sometimes takes a lot of energy to be able to go up and introduce yourself to something, but to someone. But sometimes you need to do that to be able to learn something new, learn about what another developer, another team is working on. And it can not just expand your horizons, but open your mind up to like applicable things that to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Cool. Yeah, go ahead. Anybody that's on speaking, go nuts.
Yeah, I want to touch back on what you mentioned about having that one person that you recognize when you're feeling nervous and anxious, because I definitely felt that during my first conference at that, because not only was it my first conference, it was also my first time going on an airplane for the first time ever. It's my first time traveling alone for the first time. And so it was honestly really terrifying for me to go out of my way and put myself in an uncomfortable situation like that. And unfortunately, the circumstances, like timing wise, it was not good because it was literally a week right after CrowdStrike, and I was going on Delta. And honestly, my mind was literally going 100 miles an hour because I'm like, oh my god, I have a flight literally Thursday. I see all these people posting on Twitter about how they're still in the Delta airport, and I have a flight to Wisconsin. I am freaking out. Please get your stuff together, Delta. It was very nerve wracking to get on that airplane, but then once I managed to calm myself down, I was like able to recognize a lot of familiar faces. I think my first person I met there officially was Shashi and Chris, and it was just great to finally meet them in person. Just being like, oh my god, I can actually hug you and hang out with you and be with you guys. And then I eventually met up with Ellie, and then I met up with Roxy and Jason. It was just so great to see all these familiar faces that I've interacted with online and be able to be like, oh my god, I remember having all these great conversations online, but then seeing them in person, being able to interact with them and talk with them, it's just so different. It's such a different experience, and then getting to catch up with them again at All Things Open was just magical too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, just for people that are new, so are not part of this community. So this is a community. Like there's definitely, I think like this, even looking at this group, like my certain online community is growing, but like some of the people that Richard's talking about, if you look up Shashi, and I can't remember his last name, but he runs the Gridiron, what is it? Gridiron what, Richard?
Gridiron Survivor, and his last name is Lo, Lo.
Ah, yeah. So Shashi Low, so Gridiron Survivor, it's like a similar to 100 Devs, if anybody here has heard of them before. And so a lot of these people we're expanding into the world of some of these great onboarding communities that are out there. And if you're here, by the way, and you're super comfortable, if you're not comfortable to jump on, which I know could be super stressful to like actually want to be here and be recorded and all the rest of that, feel free to throw like highlights, lowlights, all the rest of the stuff in the chat. There is like a thread chat for this space. So like you can throw feedback and comments in there. But I'm super curious for those of you who are actually, no, before we get into the next thing, I want to just call out some of the stuff that's written down. So Matt Edenfield, who's watching. So Matt, actually, we met Matt on like day one, and a bunch of us went to karaoke. And I did this thing in terms of like icebreakers and meeting new people that I'd never thought of until that moment, but I actually like it as a thing, especially at a tech conference. And we were doing like nerdy niches. What is your nerdy niche as like a social icebreaker? And there are some like interesting nerdy niches. We had some people that are on this call that were like super into like crystals and rocks. We had some people that were super into working out. We had, I don't even remember what some of the other niches were, but there were like some,
Some people like pirates, I think.
I think some people like pirates. So on the final night, that's a little inside joke. We'll let you in. So this is the thing about going to conferences, right? Is you never know what you are going to see. And a number of folks on the final night, there's always a few people that are left over on the final day, like post conference. And a number of us went out to dinner, and we ended up at a restaurant, and we were having a conversation, and a pirate walked in. And it was just the silliest thing that you can imagine. Yes, that's the start to a joke, but also an actual thing that happened at this conference.
Tis true. Tis true.
There was swing dancing too.
There was swing dancing. Yeah, there was swing dancing that happened in these things. And these are all like the things outside of the actual conference itself. And I feel like this is the thing, right? We're talking about people and like experiences that you have outside of the actual event itself. And I think some of these things just happen naturally, right? We build relationships outside of just going to the conference stuff. But maybe let's jump back to conference specific stuff. What was your favorite talk that you saw at the conference? And if you're listening and you were there and you want to jump on, then please ask to speak, and I'd love to add you on. If you don't want to talk, but you want to share it in the thread so other people can see, I'll read it out over there. I'm keeping an eye on the thread stuff. So what was your favorite talk at the conference at All Things Open? Anybody want to start?
Yeah, I unfortunately was not able to attend every talk I wanted to, and that is something that I've learned really fast going to that conference and going to FlutterCon too, is that you're gonna miss some talks. It's just gonna happen. Things how like the way it's scheduled, there are just things that are gonna conflict. And an example of this is Nick's talk was the same time as Tracy's, and I talked to him, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, Nick, but I'm going to miss your talk. And he was honestly so nice and accepting. He's like, yeah, no worries, man. If you want to go to Tracy talk, go to Tracy talk. Unfortunately, I can't. When I give this answer, it's not including every talk I wanted to go, but among the talks that I actually physically went to, my favorite one was Taylor's. And the room was honestly very hot. It was so hot. I'm like, I don't know why there was no air conditioning in that room, but my God, it was hot. Anyways, I digress. It was a great talk. Like the points that he was talking about, and the questions too, like the interactions between Taylor and the audience was just, it was nice to see that back and forth about the topic, and seeing like all the different variations of the questions that were being asked about the interview process, and as well as like just the job journey and the job hunt in general.
I like it. Anybody else? I'm looking in the thread. Oh, we got some stuff that's coming in there. But anybody else is a speaker right now? Nick, what was your favorite talk? And you can say your own.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to my own talk. No, and it was, since I was a speaker, I was also prepping my talk, so I did miss some talks too, but I know some that I missed the recorded, so not too worried about that. But again, I was like more excited to hang with the people. But I really enjoyed a talk from Jesse Hall. I knew him before from another community, so one, it was cool to meet him in person. But he works over at MongoDB, and he was given a talk about just AI and explaining some things in regards to retrieval augmented generation, or RAG as it's called. And I'm familiar with it because we use this stuff at work, but there was just some stuff in there that I didn't know about, so I learned some things, which is great. And yeah, it's just really great talk. And it wasn't MongoDB specific, like, because like sometimes your work might ask you to say, give a talk about your job or like your product, but he wasn't doing that. He would say occasionally, here is an example in Mongo, but like the talk wasn't Mongo focused, which I think is important for when you're representing your company. I know sometimes you can't avoid it, or if it's really around your product, it makes sense. If you give a talk about feature flags, Andrew, like obviously DEVCYCLE does feature flagging, so it makes sense that you're going to bring it up. But I just like how he found that balance to not, shill the company. And I also enjoyed talking to my friend Abby, just like getting started with doing web dev and just some little things to just get you started building your website. Like, even though I've done front end for a ton, it's like I'm still that person that takes 2 weeks to pick fonts for like my blog kind of thing. I enjoyed those too, but there was a lot of great talks.
Yeah, I love that you call it out. I feel like that's something that I had to figure out early on in this world of going to conferences and applying to speak is you got to be really careful about that kind of shit because people will see it and you'll get on a list that you don't want to be on if you just every talk you submit is like how X company did amazing thing using only their technology. And you can do that, but you got to focus on the right things. I loved actually, Nick, like I popped into your talk, Eddie's talk, and a couple of other talks like that were happening at the same time. And I liked that you guys were doing framework stuff. Like I thought it was really awesome to actually just like get some time spent on like some of these great open source frameworks. I do live streams about them all the time of, hey, let's go figure out the intricacies of like X framework for X purpose. But seeing it in a talk, it was nice. It was nice to be able to take time, but also have a bit more structure around it. So I'm inspired now to go and like choose an unknown framework and give it some love at a conference.
Cool. For some context, I used to work at Netlify and I worked on the frameworks team. So that's why like I basically used to work with framework authors. Like I got to hang out with like Michael Jackson from the remix team and stuff and just chat with them because just partnerships with them and they like because you need to make it be deployable everywhere. And that was like my job at Netlify. That's how that whole thing came about. But I still find it interesting, but it wasn't a Netlify talk, because I don't work there anymore. It was just really talking about the framework. So
yeah, which was awesome. So another one that I was going to talk about, really well timed, thanks YK, there was an awesome talk that was on using AI and open source to land a job in kind of the world that we're in. And YK's here. YK just jumped on as a speaker. YK, thanks so much for being here.
Of course, it's great to be here. I hope you can hear me.
You're a little bit quiet, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm trying new headphones, so that might be right.
The joys of spaces and anything that is not just like an iPhone. I love it. Okay, anybody else that's out there, if you want to join on, share your favorite talks, please do. Andrew, what was your favorite talk at ATO?
Oh, there were a couple, I think, really good conversation. I guess it was on Monday in the DevOps topic. Heather Thacker of Progress Chef, I thought did a very good sort of overview of DevOps versus sort of platform engineering, like how the trends of that have changed over time, without like directly shilling Progress Chef too much. So I thought she held a really good balance and had some interesting insights as where she sees the whole ecosystem of the DevOps role and the platform engineering role as it currently exists, evolving over the next couple of years. Yeah, definitely worth a watch for a video once the videos are posted, hopefully next week or the week after.
I love it. By the way, if you're on this, I feel like always turn these into educational streams. So if you've never heard of DevOps before, if you've always heard of DevOps and you're like, what is a DevOps anyways? DevOps is just like, think around the processes about deploying things. So if you're using like GitHub Actions with like automation tools that are happening on GitHub to deploy your application, that's like a really simple example of a DevOps kind of tool. But like obviously the development world is changing and growing, and like talks like this, I think are just going to continue to grow. By the way, so Roxy threw in chat. So yeah, Abby's talk that Nick was talking about was designed for non-designers, which is, I think, was a really good one. And the keynotes as well, I think shouldn't be left out. I think there was some great keynotes that happened this time around. And actually one that I found out, which was a first keynote. So oh my goodness, she was sharing her experience coming to the US and starting a consultancy. Why is her name escaping me right now? I'm going to like go over to All Things Open and find her. Unless anybody remembers.
Was this on Tuesday?
This was the Tuesday one. Yeah.
Was it Kelly Vaughn?
It wasn't. No, this might have been Monday. No, it wasn't Kelly. This was. So Kelly did a good talk where she went through a LinkedIn profile and stuff. But no, this one was. Aditi, that's the one. Yeah, which I thought was like a really good talk. And the fact that it was her first keynote was pretty cool. But also so what's interesting is both Aditi and her husband are both on the conference circuit. And I've seen both of them talk now. And I was like, I don't know. Now he's got to get on a stage. So I want to see both in both situations. That's like the dueling conference talks as partners. It's a cool concept. All right, more messages are coming in. So I'm going in here to view those. Let's see what else is coming in. Yeah, we did a little hug and hallway. So what's the group? This Dot Labs, which is a consultancy that's run by Tracy Lee, I want to say is her last name. I think that's right. Richard, am I right? Is that Tracy's last name?
I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah. And so This Dot Labs does a really cool thing at these events for speakers and sponsors. They run a separate like lounge area for people to go. And there we go. Let's look at that. Somebody from This Dot Labs just came in. Hey, Danny. And one of the great things about that experience is, and I think Richard spoke to it earlier, these conferences can often be like really overwhelming. And especially if you're like a speaker, it's actually like surprisingly hard to find a quiet space that's not your hotel room to go and work on things, but also just to have a chill space to go and hang out that isn't having to go to a restaurant or something. And This Dot Labs has done a really good job at creating these cool opportunities that it's like a booth, but not a booth. And I think that's super cool. We've got somebody else has joined us as a speaker. So I'm going to absolutely butcher your name. Is it Mukul? I'm hoping that I got that right.
Yes, you are absolutely right.
Amazing. Yeah, welcome. Welcome to our All Things Open conference highlights. So if you're just coming in, welcome. We're talking favorite talks or favorite walks, which was my segue that led me here on sort of the final night. We were doing a little bit of a hug and hallway in there because these conferences are all about making connections, and lots of hugs were had in the This Dot Labs room, which I think is pretty fantastic. But if you've got a favorite talk before we talk about some other stuff, feel free, throw it into the chat, or come on, join us and have a conversation. This is all about you sharing your experience. Andrew and I had one or two experiences. That's it. We basically just sat staring at a wall most of the time. So we want to hear yours. That's also completely not true, because I know that at least one person here, your favorite experience was having some ice cream. There we go. So speaking of the devil.
So I do think the ice cream defeated Andrew a little bit.
It definitely did. Danny, how are you, sir?
What's going on? Apparently, if you say This Dot Labs 3 times, I show up. So
Basically.
I really hope that's true. Danny, so what was your favorite talk that you went to at All Things Open?
to be honest, I hate to even say it like this because it feels like I'm plugging, but Tracy's talk was pretty cool. It was different ways that you could utilize AI and RAG authentication with your local LLMs and tools. I thought that was pretty cool, if I'm honest. And a little bit biased, I'm pretty proud of my keynote. So I would say probably that one, plugging that a little bit. But there was also another talk. I'm trying to remember who the speaker was. It was on day 2 also. I got to pop in for a little bit. Oh, who had a really good talk? And I don't want to mispronounce her name. Is it Adita Fernando? She was really good. And so I liked her talk. But yeah, those are probably the ones that immediately come to mind that I got to see. Because the other part, I guess, would be with this dot, when we go to a conference, we also have to do other stuff like we're recording podcast videos and we're recording all this other material. And I think we recorded like 10 or 12 podcast interviews while we were there. So I ended up missing a lot of the talks because we were recording during the day. So it becomes a little painful. But the other thing too, if we're being completely honest, they got like 19 talks happening at the same time every hour. That's tough to catch the ones that you want to catch as well. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard this from a lot of people. It's if you go to a large conference, you have to plan to go for multiple years if you can, if it's affordable. And I think All Things Open it's choose one where you're just going to go and hang out with people and maybe go and check out some of the booths. And then maybe the next year you're going to go and check out all the talks, but there's no way you can ever do everything that's going on at the conference.
Yeah, that was the only negative I heard from anyone, that there was just too many options, too many good options to choose from, and that just how wide the conference is, and I think the ballrooms definitely could have fit, like if you condense from the 12 to maybe 5 or 6, maybe it would have been a little more consumable, but obviously that reduces speaking opportunities for folks. But yeah, multiple years, you see some of these folks at different conferences. So if you miss their talk at ATO, maybe they show up at KubeCon, or they show up at Commit Your Code or some other conference coming up, or Render in Atlanta.
You want to know? I will say this. What was one of my favorite parts, and it happened by accident, and it was one of my favorite things that happened the whole conference. In the for those that may not have been all things open, I apologize that you missed a great opportunity and time. Hopefully next year you can come out there. But we had a suite there. I guess it became like the This.Lab suite, but we've always called it Room 404. And it's like a great way for people to connect, de-stress. If they feel stressed during the day, they can escape. And at night, everybody comes together and they have conversations. But in the spur of the moment, we created like an ad hoc speaker room where speakers were testing their talks for the next day. That had to be one of the best moments for me because, number one, I genuinely believe it made my keynote that much better. And I think if I went with my original strategy, I don't think my keynote talk would have been as good. And it gave me a lot of ideas on how to, like, I guess, weave my story together a little bit in that context and conversation. And that became so fun. For an hour and a half, we were literally there just drinking and talking and working on talks. And we had 6 speakers hanging out together. It was a cool, fun time. And we definitely got looks. And somebody, I won't say who, had a desktop on their laptop filled with so many icons that literally I still have nightmares. And so that moment hasn't left me.
You just got called out. I love that they're on the space right now. That's fantastic. You know who you are. So that was impromptu. That wasn't planned, Denny?
First time I've ever done something like that, and it was such a blast that I know if I go to a conference again, I'm going to try and get speakers to do that again. Because number one, I think from a value perspective, speakers were always in our head trying to think of, is this actually good? But then if you have real-time feedback of, oh, if I adjusted X, it would lead to a more impactful point. Sometimes we get in our head that we forget that, or we miss that, or we think something's impactful when it's not. And man, that little insight by itself, I felt was worth so much. But then on top of that, getting to have a blast, joke around with them, and it was just spur of the moment, and was probably one of the best things that happened out of the conference for me personally. I felt like I grew so much within that hour alone. So at least from my perspective, it was super good to get that feedback.
Love that. By the way, if you've got, I don't know if you actually have hands up, but if you're on and you got a hand up and you want to jump on, just unmute, go ahead and talk. I think we're good. But yeah, I think, YK, is it actually up?
Yeah, it was. Good to see you, Daddy. And I was called out without being called out, so I figured I would respond to it. So the room thing, I didn't know there were like 6 speakers at the end. I was there only, I guess, at the beginning. And so the whole thing started because Danny was like, let me know if there's anything I can help you with. I was like, I'm practicing my talk. So that's how it happened. And then I did my thing. Danny did his, and we gave each other feedback. That was, yeah, really helpful, actually. Like he was saying, it's hard to be in the shoes of other people, like the audience. So I think it's really nice to be able to, like, basically get feedback from other DevRels, because that's what we do. That's our whole thing. And for the thing he said about like someone's laptop having a lot of files, I have a good explanation for it. Maybe I'll get into it later.
I wasn't saying your name. I wasn't saying. I don't know whose it was, but if you could look at that picture that I pinned at the top, that's literally us. It's obviously a joke picture because I also posted a photo of Chris Sev. But that was us just hanging out in that ad hoc speaker room, just going over talks and working on it. So I felt like that was a really good moment.
Yeah, these are these lovely moments that just happen that you can't plan, and they just happen, and it makes the conference experience just like, I feel like that's the thing that is conferences, right? You go for the scheduled and you stick around and keep coming back for the unscheduled things. So if you're just coming in, welcome. We're talking all things open 2024. A lot of the folks that are on the stream just got back from Raleigh, North Carolina. And yeah, we're chatting about some of our favorite experiences at the conference. Nick, I don't actually know if you got your hand up. I feel like you do, but
Yeah, it's up. It's up.
hey, there we go.
It was glitching before, but it's up now. Yeah, I just wanted to plus one what Danny was saying, like going through your talk and stuff. I didn't do it in the This Dot suite because I can't remember no, I hadn't done my talk yet, but I pretty much prepped it already, and I was just not in the headspace to practice. But I was at at the Netlify conference a few weeks before giving a talk, and I found it super helpful. I was chatting with my coworker Becca, who I think Becca Howard Weigel, but I was just like, oh, like just getting feedback. What do you think about this and stuff? And it totally helped because like when you give a talk, if it's a technical talk, you can just say, this is the thing, this is what it does, blah, blah, blah. And it can be informative, but not engaging. And Becca's a really good storyteller. So I was just like, I don't know, she just helped me. Like I had an idea and she's like, yeah, no, that's good because you're telling a story now. And like, I won't go into all the details, but TLDR, I was talking about HTML forms, and like the whole storytelling part was me like getting my first computer, using GeoCities for the first time, seeing a web form. And so like that was like the hook for the story, and it really worked because I got lots of great feedback after. So I was definitely appreciative that I had that convo with her. So the feedback is definitely super helpful and valuable.
Love that. Love that. I just want to read through because we got stuff that's coming in. I love this. Such a super active chat. I feel like this speaks to ATO, that we've got just people that are contributing the way they feel comfortable and safe. And I really love that. Sana, I can't remember how to pronounce your name correctly. It's been 2 days. My brain fell apart. Either way, DEI sessions. Yeah. So there's the co-located events that happen on day one there's like a community leadership summit, which is like an unconference. And then there was another one that was happening, which was a diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if you don't know what that is, and you ever see DEI, that's what that stands for. And think of DEI, the focus of these kind of events are on opening the doors to the tech industry for folks that are traditionally underrepresented. A lot of people look like me and they don't need to. And we want to find ways to expand who's able to access kind of the awesomeness that is this kind of stuff. And so I think that was a really cool thing, not only having the DEI track, but also there was like free diversity tickets. So if you fell within that underrepresented group, then there were tickets that were available for you. And I think even that, like the conference itself, if you bought early, was only like $100 to go to, which is relatively unheard of. Is there any other conference that is that inexpensive to attend?
There's a new one coming up.
Oh, there you go.
A ticket.
Hey, there you go. Let's go. Richard, I feel like you should pitch it, and then we'll see if the person who may be involved in it wants to hire you as their marketing person. So what is the upcoming conference, Richard?
Yeah, so the conference is called Commit Your Code, and tickets are only $30. You can, of course, pay more if you would like to. It's not a requirement though, but all proceeds are going to charity. Everything is going to charity. There's a lot of great speakers like YK, who's also in this space, Danny, who's in this space. I'm not sure if Nick is going, and I know there's a lot of other people that are going to be speaking, like Tracy is also speaking. I know Leon Noel from 100 Devs is speaking. I also know that there is going to be a lot of great people like me who are not speaking. I know Jasmine, Bo from 100 Devs, and Leah, who streams from Twitch, is also going to be attending as well. I know Roxy, who's in attendance, is also going to be attending. It's going to be a 2-day conference, and I believe there's 3 tracks: JavaScript, Java, I think it's C#. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think. And I believe food is also provided.
That was a pretty good summary, actually. That was like 2 minutes. What do you think, unnamed person involved in the conference?
He was almost hired until he said C# before cloud. So that right there just cost him everything. But no, in all seriousness, thank you so much. I've truly been very humbled with the people that have gotten behind this, especially since this is the first time we're doing this. It's been very impressive because I didn't think we'd even be at the stage we are now at this time. I was actually afraid that we were going to be well far behind at this point, and I was worried initially because the other thing too is for this conference, I didn't get the idea for it until end of August. And so with us already being here now for the 1st of November, I feel like we've covered more ground than probably most people cover within that time period. Definitely have a few more tickets to sell, but I think we're beyond well on track to hit whatever goals that we've had. And so to iterate, I wanted to create a conference that was a little different. And so I was speaking at a conference. I won't say the name because I think it's a great organization, great conference. But when I came back, someone said, it's my dream to go to that conference, but I just can't afford to go. And I was like, that's wild because you are a developer, you work in tech, and you still can't afford to go. So that means because of the lack of income that you may have, you're being held back in accelerating your career through resources. So I didn't want income to be a barrier to that. So I said, what if I created a conference where everyone inside the room felt equal and they had equal access to the resources? For me, if I'm being completely honest, money isn't really a massive driving factor for me. So I was like, what can we do something that's different that would get me excited? And the charity angle came up to where like, where else can we help everyone level up as developers, but also support charity and organizations that make a difference at the same time? And when I researched, I couldn't find another organization doing that. So this is like the perfect way to hit all the angles that we want to hit: support charity, support the developer community, bring folks together, and a very inexpensive option. And when I started running the numbers, I was like, you could live in New York or California and fly to Dallas and buy the conference ticket, and it would still be cheaper than the average tech conference that you go to. So that's a win as far as I'm concerned. So I feel like it's great. Plus, of course, we're going to share it on social media and stream online. So that way it's people still have access. It'll be free, but if they want to, they have the option to donate as well, since it's all going to charity. Me and my entire team, we're donating our time. So no one is making a penny off of it. And keeping up with the whole open source model, we are publishing all of our financial data publicly so everyone can see exactly where the money goes. And that way there's no hidden agendas or anything like that.
Love that. Love that. And so, yeah, somebody in the thread, by the way, so Matt, I think, shared a link to it. So if you want to find out about what's going on there, you can. Also, YK share. YK is going to be there and at QCon. But I also want to call it somebody who wasn't there and not being at ATO, who's come on as a speaker, not being at ATO and seeing everything that was posted this week the FOMO must have been real. How real was your FOMO this week, Marino?
Oh my gosh. Y'all are killing me. Killing me. So I was at ATO last year. I actually presented a workshop and it was phenomenal. The event was amazing. And I was a little sad I wasn't able to be there this year. In fact, some of the organizers wanted me to submit. I just couldn't. I had to do the right thing and stay home. But I saw that y'all had a good time. And I think I'm going to see some of y'all very soon. So I'm really excited about that, but I'm not going to say much about it. Thanks for being a great co-host, Andrew.
Hey, thanks, Marino. Yeah, we'll shout it out. CubeCon's happening next week. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be a lot of people in Salt Lake City. We're talking about other conferences.
I wasn't talking about KubeCon.
Oh, all right. So we're talking about something unrelated. I think Marino's just coming to your house. So prepare yourself. He's going to show up on your doorstep, but he's good. He's a good guest. We got another speaker that's just joined on who was there on site and was also doing a lot of work. It was a busy week for Jason. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I saw Marino up here and wanted to say hello because I'm excited to meet Marino at Commit Your Code conference in December.
Oh.
Should I not have said that, Marino? Was that a spoiler?
That was a massive spoiler. Oh my God, Jason, why?
No, think out, Marino.
We can delete it from the recording.
But 100% will not. I'm going to clip it and it's going to be its own separate recording, but I'll post it later.
I've been drinking, so I made that up. Never mind.
Okay, Jason, what was your favorite either talk, or I'd actually love to talk. I want to talk swag stuff in a second, but let's talk favorite talk, or say if maybe you were involved in some sort of an after hours event.
Sure. That's a loaded question. Obviously, the Render Torque meetup that we had was pretty awesome. The energy was super cool. It was great to co-host that with Justin and Brianna, who also works at Torque, so it worked out really well for all of us. I think everybody had a really good time. Taylor's talk was great. I didn't honestly get to see a lot of the talks that I wanted to because I was just hitting the ground and networking like crazy, because when you're there in a different position as opposed to just like an attendee where you can hang out and immerse yourself in it, but you're actually working, it's a very different experience, which I think a lot of you can speak to as well.
Yeah, so true. And it's funny, the talk that you mentioned, Taylor's talk, which was like behind the scenes of like the hiring process. The room was packed, but somebody else called that out in the chat. Yeah, Roxy called it out. Yeah, Taylor's talk, super helpful. People chimed in and gave helpful insights, which I think is like the glorious part about some talks, if you're able to open up and let the room contribute. And also like this, right? Like it's a conference talk that's basically an X space. Okay, so people are on. We're talking talks, favorite talks at All Things Open. I feel like people spend a lot of money on this. Companies do. And so I feel like we should reward people and all these companies that spend thousands of dollars on it. What was your favorite swag item that you got at ATO? Yeah, go ahead, Marino.
I gotta say, I saw a tweet somewhere that Tracy was running around grabbing swag for Ellie. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone's got to talk about that. And by the way, there is an amazing person here, or two amazing people. There's Kat, and then there's Lisa. Lisa was at ATO, and if you can bring her up to speak as well, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to invite you, Lisa. Just give me 1 second. I got to jump over onto mobile, figure out how to do this. Man, there we go. All right, let's invite you up to speak. Lisa. All right, invite to speak. And then who else was it, Marino? Kat? Kat, where's Kat? Oh, there we go. There's Kat. All right, invite to speak. All right, Kat, I invited you up, and I think y'all should have those invites coming your way in a second. All right, Marino dropped off. Yeah, and if you want to request, there's still some spots open. People can drop off too. So what was your favorite swag? Throw it in the chat. Marino, do you want to speak again? Hold on. I might need to pull somebody off to add you back in. So give me 1 second, speakers. And then all right, y'all are good. I'm going to pull off.
You can drop me off.
Oh, no, I think we're good. I think we're good. 2 spots open. All right, I think we're good now. People can add themselves. Just do a request if you want to get added, and then I'll add you back in. All right, but I think Kat is on and Lisa's on. So Kat and Lisa, were you both at ATO this week? Oh, you did not come through for me anyways, Kat.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I was not, so I'm not sure I should be on the speaking panel, but I'm here to hear all about it.
Love it. All right. But Kat, you definitely were. I feel like I saw you at some point in the conference.
I have been very reclusive in the last couple of weeks, so I was not there unless it was my body double. I don't keep track of her.
So
I was there. This is Lisa.
So Lisa, you were there?
Yes, I day one. So Jono and I kicked off CLS Day.
Yes.
I've done that for many years. I did the land acknowledgement, kicked that off. And then halfway through that day, I went over to MC the Inclusion and Diversity in Open Source Day, as I've done for the last couple of years. And then we also, Jono and I did the keynotes for day one, and I did the closing keynote. So yes, I was there. I was very busy. And I think Marino, I was bugging Marino the whole time, like, why aren't you here? So I just wanted to say, a lot of people think of All Things Open as a 2-day conference. And Jono and I try very hard to make people think of it as a 3-day conference, because the stuff we do on, I will call it day one, but on the Sunday is really, truly amazing. I remember 10 years ago joining my first community leadership summit, and it changed my life, and I haven't missed one since. And I will say, for the DE&I Day, Todd Lewis is incredible. He curates some of the best speakers and content, and it's just one of those things that if he asks for my help, I'm always going to say yes, because I just know it's going to be so well worth everyone's time. I can honestly advocate for it. And it's one of the few, I've done a lot of DE&I days at different conferences, and it's one of the few that I would say we keep it very real. And I always make sure that it's open source focused. It's also whatever's apropos. And so of course we made a lot of it about AI, but we also talked about accessibility and neurodivergency and bias in AI and responsible AI, and really bringing up using a lot of data to show how the risk of the gaps, especially in the United States, like the wage gap between African-American workers and white, is going to grow even more than it is already today. And the McKinsey report that just came out recently is talking about a $43 billion annual wage gap risk for not just underrepresented communities, but particularly African-American communities. So we talk about these things at DE&I Day, and about what the role is of us in open source communities to make sure that we are building responsible AI, responsible LLMs, trying to get as much bias out of there as possible, and also just keeping humanity at the center of the conversation all the time. So that was what we did this year at Inclusion and Diversity Day. And I think we'll probably make it a lot about AI next year as well, because I'm pretty sure we're still going to all be talking about this stuff. So that was a recap of day one, I'll call it, but the Sunday, and it's free, by the way. I heard somebody else talking about the ROI for all things open, especially the early bird. If you sign up for early bird, the whole conference is $79. You can't get lunch for 2 days for that generally at a conference. It's incredible, the savings that, I don't know how Todd sorts it out with sponsors and things like that. But anyway, I was super happy to join. And then in terms of swag, to answer your swag question, not to go from one very important topic to
No, you're to one less important topic.
swag.
It's okay, fair.
But so I just very recently joined Intuit to run the DevRel team there. And so I made sure that the whole team was there, because the dev advocates, I feel like if you're a dev advocate or a community architect, you cannot spend a better week of your time than at All Things Open and CLS Day. So I was running around with Numi. We have a new open source project. So a lot of you guys probably know that Intuit brought Argo Proj and other incredible open source technologies. We had a talk about GraphQL there and other communities that we participate in and try to foster. And so our new thing is Numi Proj, and it's an AI ops project. And so I was running around with a Numi bear, which is the little polar bear. He has an Argo scarf on, and it's very cute. We will be giving these away at KubeCon during ArgoCon Day and also at the Intuit booth. So it's the cutest piece of swag that I've seen. And Numi and I went big. We took pictures in the arcade and of course at the bar, and Numi's still sleeping off his big week. But it's a really cute plushie and a fun piece of swag. And we have shirts as well and a whole bunch of things for Argo and for Numi and for other open source projects that we'll be giving out at KubeCon as well. So that's a lot. Sorry, that was a lot of talking, but I just wanted to say hi to everybody, and I will see you at KubeCon if I missed you at All Things Open.
No, I love that. Thanks for being here, Danny. I just saw Danny's got a piece out, but thanks for jumping on, Lisa. Appreciate you sharing. And I think it's super important. I love we're going from the most important topic to maybe the least, but we're gonna do it. So what else we got in chat? So I'm just looking at chat here. What are some other things that people really enjoyed? So Jason, thanks for a little shout out there. Newstack dad hats. I love that dad hats are the thing now, and Newstack had some really great ones. Also, yeah, DevCycle, little sugar coma. That's a good takeaway from any conference. It's the one that doesn't last forever, but definitely reminds you that it's there. I think I took away a sugar hangover the next day from our little DevCycle HQ party.
New Relic's dice that they were handing out were super cool. The context there is at KubeCon in Paris, our giveaway was little Dungeons and Dragons 20-sided dice that we had our little Togglebot logo printed on them. And then we were just walking by the New Relic booth, and they had these basically like light up Dungeons and Dragon dice that they were handing out, which was like beyond cool. I think definitely a few folks in the office have claimed dibs on those already.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was gonna say too. I'm just looking at other things. Yeah, there was an Ember bug. There were some awesome giveaways. I will say System 76, if you don't know who they are, go Google them. They're like a pretty high-end Linux first laptop maker, and they were doing a giveaway like every day. So every day, just a random conference attendee could win a System 76 laptop, which is a pretty incredible experience, or a pretty incredible swag item to walk away from. Yeah, Ember mug. I think I said that already. What else we got in here? Any other thing? Oh yeah, I don't know. Was this a puzzle? Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so Permit.io did puzzles. I wish that I'd gone by the Permit.io booth and gotten some swag. Dang, that's cool. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, by the way, go into the thread for the conversation and you can see the items there. Nick, what about you? What was your favorite swag item?
I haven't been. I only started going to conferences in 2023, and this is the first time I go to a Red Hat booth. And they were giving out red fedoras. So like basically anybody that wants to be where in the world is Carmen Sandiego was like hooked up. So they went pretty fast though. I picked one up on the first day, but they were definitely gone like midday, I think. And then the other two swag items I snagged. I snagged one from SourceGraph from Chris Sev, YK's coworker. It was just kind of like a super cable with all kinds of, so basically you don't have to go through dongle hell. It's just, it had everything on it. And I got one like that too from Valky, the Redis fork, and I was pretty happy with all those things. And I also got a whiskey and whatnot t-shirt with, I think, I'm not sure if it's an octopus or a squid. Jason can probably answer that because he was on their podcast.
Admittedly, I didn't ask, and I came home and showed my wife and Jack the shirt. I was like, maybe it's a cuttlefish. I have no idea. I think Percona had the cool fanny packs. I got one of those I was pretty stoked about. And Chris had the cool screen cleaner thing. It's got the spray built into it, and then it like has the microfiber wrapped around the outside. That was pretty cool too. SourceGraph.
I will say I like the trend now that we're seeing of like really utilitarian like swag items, because obviously I think if we're talking about sort of important topics, there's a lot of swag that is purchased for many thousands of dollars, and a lot of it kind of gets returned, or some of it gets landfilled or donated. And I think so many of the items that were giveaways at this conference, I found were like, this is a thing that I'm actually going to use. And you weren't just going home with a bunch of kitschy items that you might never touch again. Although I don't know how often I'll use a light up 20-sided dice, but I'm going to find opportunities. I'm going to find opportunities to roll it. The only other thing, talking back, so earlier Lisa mentioned John O'Bacon. So he was hosting the MC for the main stage, but also the Community Leadership Day. And he was doing a book signing and giving away copies of his book, which is like People Powered, I think is the name of it. And so I got a signed copy there, and I was like, I'm traveling very far to get back to where I live, so I never take very much swag. But that was definitely, finding space for that book was definitely worth it. Man, and lots of comments going on in the thread too. Yeah, feel free, unmute yourself. I think Marito, oh no, your hand's not actually just up on desktop. But anyway, if you'd like to jump in and say anything, feel free. I'm just taking a look through our thread here to see what's going on. Nick, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, I got to hop off, but just want to say thanks for hosting it, Andrew and Andrew, the Andrews, if you haven't seen that mini web series that they did yet. But yeah, appreciate you hosting this, and thanks everybody for the convos, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, we'll see you in the next one, Nick. Yeah, if you're not sure what Nick's talking about, so taking a page out of the This.Labs book, as well as actually the book of, if you don't know him, Birthmark Bark on all the social channels, Bart Farrell does a series at KubeCon where he actually travels around and does interviews. And I think Kunal Kushwaha does this as well at a lot of conferences for SIVO, just going and recording conversations with people. So I actually recorded 20 interviews or 22 interviews over the course of the 2 days, which were just like about what do you love about all things open. And then a lot of people are looking for work, so giving people an opportunity to do that, to just like pitch themselves, and then just to share their product that's out there. And just honestly, like from my side of it, it's just, if we can give another channel post ATO to share the awesomeness that is ATO, I think the more opportunity for that, the better. So yeah, if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Like, I'm going to be posting those. I was going to do it this week, but this was I only had 2 days this week. And so it's going to be my goal for next week. It's going to start to slowly publish those over kind of the next month, if you're featured there. So if you're just coming in, we are chatting All Things Open. If you don't know what All Things Open is, it is an open source conference, happened in Raleigh earlier this week. We're talking about favorite talks. We're talking about favorite swag items. And I'm really curious to see what people thought. Like, what was your favorite? So throw it in the thread or request to speak. Would love to have you on, because you know what, at the end of the day, this space setup is about allowing you to have the opportunity to share and speak as well. So yeah, please feel free to request, throw your stuff in there. I'm taking a look at all of these conversations as we go and sharing things out. Okay, so let's talk. So we talked talks, we've talked swag items, but maybe the booths. So I know there were some pretty cool booths at this conference for the sponsor booths. Did anybody get a chance to check any out? I didn't get to do a very big tour, but I'm curious if anybody that's either a speaker right now or that is just...
Did he get cut off? Andrew, I think he got cut off there.
I think I might have muted
Sounded
myself.
Like you choked. You were like, and
I did. I feel like,
awkward.
Thank you. I love that. Thank you, Google Chrome, Twitter Spaces. Yeah. So anyways, favorite booth.
Yeah. Favorite booth. Hands down, Hero Devs. Their booth was insane. Everybody was dressed up. I genuinely cannot even think of another booth that went to the level that they did. All the other ones were just tables with a drop cloth, couple like step and release banners, but holy cow. Somebody posted pictures of it. I can't remember who, but yeah, that's the coolest booth I've ever seen.
Was that the Halloween, the one that had the
Oh
haunted
yeah.
house theme?
Yeah. They had smoke
Yeah, they were.
machines, everything.
That was really cool. They were right across from our booth. We did not do a drop tablecloth, I'll have you know, at Intuit, but it was fun being there as an end user because like I said, I just joined. And so I've been in the past just working for vendors in the ecosystem, but to be an end user that contributes a lot to open source. But then a lot of people, they think about Intuit and they're like, what, like QuickBooks, TurboTax, Credit Karma? Like they don't realize that all this runs on Kubernetes and on Argo and on all this cool technology. And so people were coming by our booths and they were just, what do you guys do in open source? And we're like, oh my gosh, we have a whole division called Intuit Open Source, which I'm so happy to be part of. But it was really fun having those conversations and just talking about open source and letting people know that there's a lot of very cool companies out there that contribute a lot to open source that you might not actually think of. It's just a lot more community involvement than people realize. So that was the fun conversation that we were having at our booth.
I love that. By the way, if you're in the thread, I'm just going to add Heather to the speaker group, but there is a photo in the thread. If you're like, what are these people talking about, a Halloween themed booth? You can actually find a photo. Just keep scrolling down, give it a retweet and give some Hero Dev Spokes some love on there. So we have added Heather to our speaker group. Heather, favorite talk, favorite booth, favorite swag item, favorite whatever you want to talk about. What was a highlight for you of all things open this year?
Hey, Andrew. Hey, everyone. Thanks for holding this space. And I guess I have an obligation to be biased and say that my talk was my favorite and that my booth was the best one and we were giving away the best swag. Just kidding. While I was there in that capacity, I definitely was blown away by this Source Graph spooky Halloween booth. And as far as talks go, like when you're a sponsor, especially, like you don't really get a lot of time to go to talks. So I really caught like YK's talk on like his journey with AI, and I caught like Danny's keynotes, and honestly that might be it. Everything else I like got a few fragments here and there of some other talks, but the great thing about All Things Open is that a lot of the tracks are recorded, so I'm definitely going to go back and watch them. But I was very much on the hallway track, and I feel maybe from a sponsor perspective we were all blown away. A sales engineer and a director of engineering was with me along with my DevRel manager, and we all were just like impressed by the sort of traffic that we were getting in the hallways and like all the people that we were connecting with. And of course, Chef is open source, has been for a while, and I don't know, 15 years or something. So it's been like, it was a really overall great experience. Like, I got a lot of great feedback from my talk. And as a speaker, I feel like it was a really good for where I'm at. Like my first year speaking at tech conferences is where I'm at. So I feel like it was a really great experience for me, and really loved all the socials also happening too, like getting to see some of my local friends. And then of course going to, I don't know if we talked about this one yet, the Torque in Render social that Jason helped organize. There's just so many great aspects, and I feel like I missed a ton. Like Andrew, I missed your ice cream social. It was just like a really full year.
I love that. Yeah, I love giving this shout out to some of these events. And you've actually set this up incredibly well. The segue into what was your favorite, I don't want to say unconference because there was a really good unconference, but what was your favorite hallway track activity? And if you're new to the conference scene and you're listening to this kind of space right now, the hallway track is like it's the stuff that happens in the hallways when you're walking between places, the people you meet, the stuff that you go and do. Some of it's official, some of it's unofficial. I'll share mine and then hopefully other people will jump on. I found at conferences, I love going and doing social stuff in the evenings. And so for a long time, we were traveling to KubeCons. And so in Chicago and Paris, previously it would be bowling. So we would find a group of people and go bowling together. But this time in Raleigh, it was actually karaoke. And so, believe it or not, on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock in Raleigh, North Carolina, you can find a bar that will be doing karaoke. And we found it by happenstance. Like we went to one place that didn't have it, and then somebody was on the patio and was like, if you go to this place, and there's a hole in the wall, a little bit of a dive karaoke place, but it was such a cool experience. So yeah, my kind of favorite hallway track this time around was definitely, in addition to, of course, our ice cream party, and there'll be photos that I'll share about that a little bit later on. But yeah, I would say karaoke was definitely my favorite hallway track thing that happened. Anybody else favorite hallway track thing, either in chat or that's a speaker right now?
I would say for me, it was the bar on Monday, or I think it was Monday, where it was the bar slash karaoke after Torque, the Torque
Oh,
meetup, right?
yes.
And then we went over there and we were just gathered around the circle and we talked about our niche hobbies and just going around the circle and talking about it and just like learning about the different niche interest, niche nerd interest. I think that was topic.
Yeah,
And
nerdy niche. Matt called that one out earlier. I love that.
yeah, so that would definitely be my pick.
All right, what do we got, folks? I know we got people that are throwing up. I'm going into here and looking for other comments that are in here. I think we got Roxy's is giving us a +1 for karaoke. Anybody else? And it could just be maybe a great conversation that you had. Lisa, what about you?
Yeah, Jason Hibbets and his team were filming and recording the We Love Open Source YouTube videos. Well, the YouTube channel, but he was amazing. Like you could pop in there and just give a little interview and talk about anything you wanted to in open source, actually. And then they're all going to be up on that YouTube channel. But it's a pretty cool channel, vlog, I don't know what it's technically called, podcast that gets recorded, but it's really fun when those things go to shows and then you actually get to have live because you have all that energy from the show and everything. It's literally hallway track. Like you walk in there and you're talking about whatever is top of mind and about conversations that you've been having. So if you didn't do it this year, you probably noticed, those of you that were there, as soon as you came down the escalators, that whole booth there with the We Love Open Source, and they were giving out the We Love Open Source t-shirts, which very coveted, but you got one if you spoke. So I would encourage next year more people to pop in there and do a little recording with Jason.
I love that. I walked by a lot of times. I didn't realize you could just like pop in and say hello and talk about stuff. That's awesome. Good to know for next year.
Well, you have to talk with his producers, but there's always someone that cancels or doesn't show up to a slot but if you want to get ahead of it, email him for the show. I think I signed up the day before, something like that. Yeah, you can just reach out to Jason and I'm sure he would put you on the schedule.
I love that. Somebody else just posted something in the chat and I'm just looking for what it was about their favorite hallway track thing. You had a bunch of people for karaoke, and a bunch of people for the this.lab room. Oh, it was Matt. So Matt's comment. Yeah. So this was a really cool one because it was Dia de los Muertos festival going on. Was it the Sunday or the Monday? I feel like
It was the Sunday.
Yeah. And so if you came, not only did you get like the awesome DEI track on day one and the awesome community leadership summit, you also got to go and see this awesome festival that was going on at lunch. And I think we all had this amazing Mexican food and kind of just got to experience the culture of Raleigh in addition to the conference of all of these different cultures from around the world. Yeah, I thought that was super cool. But if you've got others, so I'm seeing more comments come in. I'm going to keep reading them out as we go in here. I'm like liking your comments so I can know which ones that I've read so far. But what was your favorite hallway track thing that you got there? Matt Edenfield, hugging hallway. I think the hugging hallway was great. And you didn't have to experience it, but I feel like it was good. It got tight. I met a lot of people and hugged a lot of people that I never would have hugged. But I think it was a fun little idea just to add a level of fun to just hanging out and meeting people.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little sad I missed the hugging hallway because I am a huge fan of those of you who know me, I am a huge hugger, and I am very sad that I missed this, that I'm hearing about this. I'm like,
yeah,
that's all.
I will say, and I mean, if you're on here and you're listening and you're like, oh, hugging hallway sounds like the thing that would be my like nightmare fuel. That's okay. Like we're still in the state that like people were masked and that was totally fine. People are fist bumping or elbow bumping. It's not like this is like everybody you meet at these conferences, you have to go and hug. That's not what we're saying. You can, I feel like, but often it's really good. And I've been to a few conferences actually that people have on their name tag. It'll say I'm a hugger or handshakes only and stuff like that. that. And also I've seen the really good badges that I need to get one that's your social battery, and you can show your social battery at different levels to know where to go. Yeah. So another comment here. Yeah. Torque Social was awesome. I would agree. I think all of the socials, and I actually want to shout out to the final social that was hosted by like the official social that actually happened at the end of the conference. I've never seen that before. It's, hey, the conference is over, and it's always see you later. At ATO, it was like, okay, the official conference is over, but now we're going to go. And they had rented 2 spaces. One of them was like a brew pub, and the other one was an arcade. And so if you wanted to go and grab a pint, you go grab a pint. If you wanted to go and just hang out in an arcade, you could go and do that. And I think there's something really special about not having the sort of sayonara once the conference is done, because it's often such a like kind of sad moment that you could delay the sadness by just a little bit, which I thought was really cool. And I hope other people will repeat that. So if you're just jumping on, we're about an hour and a half in now, actually, but you're welcome to jump on. Favorite thing about ATO, whether it was the hallway track, whether it was people you meet, or actually maybe that's that'll be the next section. But what's a highlight for you of the conference? And as people are thinking about that and joining if they'd like to, I'm really curious, who was somebody like, I know we live in this world of dev influencers, and I'm really curious, who was the dev influencer that you got the chance to meet at this conference that you maybe weren't expecting, or just was like you had a great opportunity to connect with this person that you often listen to online in real life? Yeah, super curious. Mine was, of course, Jason Torres. Never met that guy before, but he seems pretty cool.
Obviously. Mine was actually, so I was excited to meet Heather, and I was excited to meet YK. Those were the only 2 people that I talked to prior about like making sure that we synced up, and both of them were great. YK is absolutely almost the same person that he is online as he is in person. Very like low talking, just looks like he's standing off to the side a little bit and observe, like taking in what's happening around him, but also about the same height I thought he was, admittedly. We talked about this on stream earlier, and Heather was great too. She was very, very fun to talk to. So yeah, that's who I had on my list.
Nice. Yeah,
And I already knew you, so you don't count.
I'm definitely not a dev influencer either, but I appreciate it. That will help my ego. I'll maybe be able to get out of the room because of the sliding door. I will say though, yeah, YK was one. So YK is a Canadian. If you don't know who YK is, I think YK is maybe still on the stream. If not, look up YK Dojo here on X and all the channels, and you'll find YK, dev influencer, works for SourceGraph. But he's in Vancouver and I'm in Victoria, like Vancouver Island. It's like a 2-hour ferry ride. And I've known of YK for 2 years, but I'd never met him in person. So I find in this world of being in tech and going to conferences, you may live 5 minutes from another person and you'll only meet them like 1,000 miles away at a conference. Rich, what about you? Who is your favorite kind of influencer / just like online person that you got to meet in person?
I've got to give Danny Thompson the shout out because I've been interacting with him a little bit here and there on Twitter, and then I think I went on his Twitter space and spoke with him a little more. But then just meeting him in person, I was able to be like, oh hey, it's Danny. And I was able to hang out with him a lot at all things open. That was pretty cool. But I think one of the few people that I wasn't expecting to get to have, and I wish I had more of a conversation with them, was Kelly. I think I interacted with her a few times. I think they're in the room, quote unquote, 4 and 4. And then I think I chatted with Taylor just a tiny bit. I'm like, I wish I talked to Taylor a little more. But I'm glad I got to meet them at least at All Things Open. So I'm glad for that. I'm grateful for that too.
Nice. And yeah, welcome people that are just showing up. Ethan, welcome to the space. Anybody that's here and listening and you want to jump into the conversation or ask a question, or I don't know, just if you want to just have the ability to speak, just request to speak. I'll 100% add you. We've got lots of spaces and would love to have more people on here. And I see hands, but I'm on the desktop version of spaces. So I've got like separate two different devices that are set up to run this space. So yeah, who was the person that you were really excited to meet and hang out with at All Things Open? That is the question that we are looking at right now. Throw it in chat or join on to the stream. I will say that one of the people that or maybe not one of the people, but one of the things that I loved about this conference was just that it was everybody. So you had developer influencers with like tens of thousands of followers. You had brand new people into the tech industry. You had people that were looking to transition in and out and like all walks of life. I find some conferences you go to are not super beginner friendly. I would say if you are listening and you heard about KubeCon that we talked about and you're like, what is this KubeCon? It's an amazing conference. I cannot say enough positive things about KubeCon. It's hosted by the Linux Foundation. It happens twice a year, once in North America, once in Europe. It's like 10,000 people. It's a big, intimidating conference. It's a lot. And I feel like and I think we did another stream where people talked about this, but you really do need to do a smaller conference just to get your feet wet before some of these larger conferences. And even the topic, sometimes at KubeCon, like it's a lot of DevOps-y things and Kubernetes. And if you're new to this space, then that might not quite be as accessible. But I thought that this was a pretty, there was something for everybody. And I think KubeCon does as well. But if you've never been to a conference before and you're immediately jumping into 10,000 people, it can be pretty intimidating. So yeah, I think that was a highlight, was just meeting people from all walks of the developer life cycle and all roles. Like Andrew Norris, my kind of co-host here, Andrew was there, and obviously he's a CEO. We have lots of other CEOs and DevRel people and developers and DevOps people and marketing people and sales people and all the rest of them. So it was like really good representation across the board, which I thought was really, really great. So anybody else? I'm just going to go and look at chat to see if we've got other people that folks were really excited to see. If you weren't at All Things Open this year as well, I'd invite you, if you even don't want to jump on and speak, what was the thing that made you FOMO the most? Whose post was it that you saw that made you realize that, oh my gosh, this is like an incredible conference? Yeah, throw that in chat.
Andrew, it's Lisa again. I can completely second what you're saying about All Things Open and the audience. And I think those of us who have been going to conferences for many years remember all the O'Reilly conferences. And once the OzCons had stopped and weren't happening anymore, it really left a void for that open source conference that wasn't tied to a foundation, that wasn't tied to a particular technology. You mentioned the Linux Foundation work or the stuff built and based on KubeCon and that ecosystem. And I think All Things Open is perfect. It fills that void. You get the all walks of life folks that you were talking about. Everybody comes and contributes in some way. And whether you're just starting out in community and you just want to start out as an open source developer, there's lots of conversations you could have with people around that. If you're looking for mentors, they're there, as you're pointing out, from who did you want to meet. I had a lot of people come up to me. And so I would say for me, it was the reverse. I met so many amazing people that I'm connected to now that I would have never known if it wasn't for this conference, and that are just new to the community and trying to understand how they can contribute, whether they have a technical background or not. And then there's amazing talks that aren't just on the technical, contributors. The one that I put in the chat was from Brian McDonald. His talk was Verbs, Not Nouns. He's a doc writer. He's amazing. And even if you aren't a doc writer, you could get something out of this talk. I just highly recommend it if you want to look him up. He's written a bunch of books, or if you just want to see where he's speaking next. And I think he'll be speaking at All Things Open again, because his talks always get the highest reviews. My vote is to put him in a bigger room, maybe give him a keynote, but there's those type of talks. It's not just tech talks. There's something for everybody at this conference. So I second All Things Open as one of the best conferences out there, hands down. And it's completely accessible. Like, it's not a big conference and you can go and meet a lot of people. So if you didn't go, here's your pitch to go next year.
Yeah. And if you didn't go and you want to meet people, that's what this is about. I'm actually going to be doing a thread. So anybody that's on here, please watch it for a thread I'm going to post immediately after this. It's going to be people you should know. Just like, you didn't get to go to All Things Open and there's lots of people that met. And so I'm just going to share people that I know who have contact information and just be like, hey, here are some people to follow if you want to learn about these things. So I'm going to be posting that in a couple hours after I've done my live stream. Hopefully you'll share your information for people to follow. But if you're not going to follow that and you're on this space, follow everybody that's here. Go in and literally go and follow Lisa and Marino and Heather and Ellie and Richard and Jason and me and everybody else is here. Follow all the people that are here. This is what community is all about. It exists in person, it exists online, but it only exists if you know that it's there. So follow all of the people, show people some love, and I think that's a really important piece. All right, so we're at like 90 minutes, and I try and not cut these down at all, but it's also, I do end up actually like doing some edits to these afterwards and sharing them out for people that want to listen. And so I want to ask a question that kind of feeds really well into what we've just been talking about. And maybe this is going to come from people that this is an early conference or your first conference, or maybe it's coming from people that are really experienced. What would you say is your best advice for somebody who is wanting to start to go to tech conferences for whatever reason, be it education or networking or whatever? What would be your advice for somebody who's looking to start going to a conference?
I can jump in there because I think it plays in tandem with what I was thinking about bringing up a second ago. Just go. I think you don't even necessarily need to have a plan, but just get excited for what you get out of the conference. I think one thing that we really haven't talked about is like the after effects of all things open, like where the connections were made and where the follow-ups happen, or what it's inspired you to do or motivate you. So I think if you go, just keep an open mind, let things happen, enjoy it for what it is, get something out of it, but take action afterwards. Because I think so many positive things can come from them, from attending a conference, that you're missing out. So don't miss out anymore.
I love that. All right, what do we got? We got some more speakers on here. Richard, what's your advice? You're fairly new into the conference circuit. What's your advice? No advice. Same, echoes Jason. I love that I've called on Richard stepped away.
I was on mute. I was
No,
on mute.
no, you're all good.
I would say one of my advice is to find an online friend through Twitter or LinkedIn. So an example of that is I met Shashi, Ellie, Roxy, Jason, Chris, Nowiki, all through online, and that made it significantly easier for me to go into that conference knowing, hey, I know these people and I can interact with them, knowing the dichotomy of my relationship with them as people, and I'm able to be like, hey, Jason, what's up? Or hey, Ellie, how you doing? Be able to, it's easier for me to take that initiative to reach out to them. And something I've noticed when I went to that and then going to All Things Open is that if you have that buddy or that person to be with you and have that safe space to be around, it can make it a lot easier for you to go into more intimidating situations. For example, if you see a group of, let's say, like 10 to 15 people talking in a circle, it can be intimidating to join them into the conversation and insert yourself in. But if there's someone in that circle and you're friends with, it's a lot easier to jump in and be like, hey, I know you. Can I slide in? And then just go from there. So I would say having that online friend and transitioning into more of a real friendship, meeting them in person, can definitely go a long way.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting. If you're listening and you're new to the conference or tech world, there's this thing that I've heard. I can't remember where I heard it, but I think it's so important. It's called the Pac-Man rule. And if you're ever in a circle talking to a bunch of people, like always make a Pac-Man, like always leave that space open. And I would say that if you are like at a conference and you're meeting people or you're like wanting to meet people and you're nervous, and you like see an open hole that's there, like the whole reason that hole has been left is for you. Like that is why that hole exists. So go and fill it and then make room for the next person to come in. These conferences are all about kind of meeting people and seeing and connecting. And yeah, always be the Pac-Man, but also be somebody else's Pac-Man. That analogy doesn't carry, but I'm standing by it. Matt commented in chat. My microphone. Matt commented in chat, just go for it and pace yourself. Roxy, just do it. Look for the deals, take risks, make friends. What else did we get here? Any other comments that I'm seeing in here? We got lots of comments. Like the chat today is just amazing in here. Let's see. I think that's like some of the stuff that's coming through. If you've got advice, if you've got thoughts, feel free to throw them in the chat or jump on. Like we still got a little bit of time until we're going to call it maybe another couple minutes. But I am going to ask as the final kind of piece, we broke things down into like different pieces, right? It was like talks, or it was like hallway track things, or it was whatever. So I'm really curious, biggest takeaway for you as an attendee or as a speaker from All Things Open. I'll start just to give people a chance to invite themselves to the stage. My biggest takeaway from All Things Open was, in addition to Raleigh being just like the most beautiful place and people, like I feel like it is a really nice space to be, is just, I had no idea the All Things Open community existed. So just like knowledge that they exist and that there's lots of opportunities. I think that was my big takeaway, is now I know ATO is there, and now I've got a budget for ATO every year. So I'll add it to my list of annual conferences. What about other people? Biggest kind of takeaway from ATO, Richard?
Oh, biggest takeaway. I would say it is knowing how to pace myself in conferences. I think going to that and then jumping straight into FlutterCon, I realized how much I'm able to take in and how much what are my limitations in regards to talking to people. Because I talked about this with like my close friends regarding this topic. It's like that burnout of talking to too many people. And for those of you who don't know, I've been doing a lot of coffee chats for the past like 2 to 3 months pretty frequently. And as much as I loved them and I had a lot of fun talking to people and I really enjoyed getting to know all these people, I got burnt out. I like slowly saw myself burning out. And I think I realized, after realizing that, like going into All Things Open, I was able to pace myself a lot better. I was able to recognize when I was feeling that burnout. And it was great to have my conference buddy, shout out to Roxy, like constantly with me, so that like if I wanted to chill, I knew I could be with her in a safe space and just have a casual conversation without having to constantly be on, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Also, just if you do want to jump on and throw something, thoughts and kind of final thoughts in here, please do. But I just want to call it Avindra. So Avindra, we were talking about earlier. So Avindra's partner was one of our keynote speakers. Avindra was a speaker at this event as well. Then you have best places I've had memorable and inspiring conversations at a tech conference in order. One, the hallway track. And if you don't know what that is, it's the conference that happens around the conference, like those conversations in the hallway. The lunch table, dinner with a small group, open spaces. That's like the community leadership summit, like kind of the sort of unconference format where people are contributing instead of set speakers. First hour of the after party, and the last hour of the after party. $1 million business ideas make it this far. So I think that's great. Yeah. So super feel that, Avindra. So yeah, throw your comments. I'm looking through here for things that come in, or if you want to speak, you're more than welcome to jump on. By the way, if you are listening to this and you're like, oh, this is great, but like it's been going for an hour and 40 minutes and I want to listen to what happened earlier. I do edit all of these. So like I'll download this after this stream, after this space, and I'll turn it into and one of those like things with text and the vocal bars and stuff like that. And I'll put it up on the YouTube channel. If you go over and check out the DevCycle YouTube channel, I'll upload it later. I got a couple more to upload and edit, so it may be a week or so until this goes up. But if you're interested, go check it out there, and you'll be able to listen to this anytime you. But yeah, I think, and Lisa called it out in the chat as well. Do something with this. Meet people, connect with people, follow people. The algorithms are weird, and sometimes they'll show you the people you want to see, and sometimes you got to do that work for yourself. And so take advantage. Yeah, make connections that go beyond just the conference and extend much, much further. All right. I'll stop speaking and breathe for a second. Andrew, I'm going to add you back in as we are approaching the end to the space. We're going to invite you as a speaker, invite to co-host. There we go. Should have a co-host invite in there. Because I'm very interested in your kind of big takeaway from the conference. Or are you still there? We're waiting for Andrew. Andrew may have disappeared. We'll see, though.
He disappeared into the void.
He disappeared into the void. No, he's back. He's here. The lag of getting speakers added. Andrew, what's your biggest takeaway from ATO?
Oh, I think I'm having trouble connecting.
There we go. The joys of spaces. Andrew,
Can you hear me
I
now?
feel like I may have just, yeah, you're good. You're good. Sorry. What was your biggest takeaway from ATO? I feel like
I
I've
think
grabbed
it's
you
that
well in
sort
the
of
car.
like I was just picking up my 2-year-old from daycare. If you hear some singing in the background, that's what it is. Yeah, biggest takeaway I think is, as we've talked about, is the theme of the community that is here, and that you'll meet 5-10 new people at every conference, and that sort of everyone played the Katamari game back in the day, of this rolling ball of like connections and people, friendly faces that you run into at conferences. And so the more we can do that, the better. And yeah, thank you, Patrick, for your singing. It's beautiful.
Amazing. So yeah, now if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, this is amazing. I've got so much FOMO and I can't go to All Things Open this year because it just happened. And you're like, what's another conference to go to? There are more conferences that are coming up. So next week is KubeCon. It's a bit of an expensive conference to go to, and again, a big one. But if you've never heard of it before, or you're in the Salt Lake City area, go and check out KubeCon. Really good conference, especially if you want to meet a lot of people. We've got Danny's conference, which, Richard, name of it again, Community Commit Your Code, the Commit Your Code conference that Danny is hosting in December. So you can go and check that out. And then the joyous thing is that it all starts over again. So that's probably, I think, the last conference that'll happen in 2024. But the whole circuit starts over again in 2025. And there's lots of really great stuff happening around the world. Then we got that conference in Wisconsin that'll be happening next summer, and lots of stuff in between around the world. So yeah, I think with that, we're an hour, 2-hour 45 into this. And I actually have to go and do a 2-hour live coding stream immediately after this. So I need a little bit of a slight break between, but I just want to say, for everybody that was a speaker, a sponsor, an attendee, an MC, just a guest on this session, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Y'all are awesome. Thanks for sharing your experiences. Thanks you for chatting in chat. Thanks for coming on and being a speaker in the space. And if you're like, I would really love to contribute to one of these conversations, these happen all the time. And it's not just me. Jason Torres hosts some awesome content. I know Richard's doing some streaming now. Lots of people that are on this, not just Jason and Ali, I'm sorry. So there's lots of stuff that's going on, and lots of these kind of sessions to check out. And it's part of the joy of being part of this kind of global tech community, is there's lots of opportunities to engage. So take advantage, follow all the people that you heard from today, follow each other, don't be strangers. This is all about making connections with people. At the core of tech is community, and at the core of community is people. So be sure to, if you are listening to this, I'm going to be again posting a thread a little bit later on today of here's people that you should follow and some of their social channels and all the rest of that. So be on the lookout for me to post that a little bit later today. And then you can save that. And as people add to it and add themselves and others to it, then you'll be able to know some of the great people to follow if you want to stay up to date on great things that are happening in the tech industry. So with that, Richard, do you want to have the final word?
Final word.
There it is. I think that's it, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're spectacular. You're beautiful. Keep engaging, keep peopling, and we'll see you around the DevCycle community, but also around the internet community as a whole. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.